Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the 3rd and 20 Dynasty Podcast. I'm JT, joined by Frank, Jake, and Lounis. We are back again, and some news dropped today, right before we're recording this, actually, and I'm just going to lead us right into this. We have Sean Payton getting traded to the Broncos, the head coach trade, for a 2023 first and 2024 second. And in addition to Payton, the Saints are sending over a 24 third as well. But yeah, Sean Payton going to be a head coach of Broncos, and his job is fixing Russell Wilson. Do you think he can do this, guys?
If there's anyone that can do it, Sean Payton can do it. He's just an offensive mastermind. We've seen him do it with the Saints, and I think there's going to be no difference here. I think this is exactly what the Broncos needed, an established veteran offensive head coach that can really give this offense a direction. Because if you just look last year, Hackett gave this team no direction on the offensive side of the football. This team looked like an absolute disaster. And Russ included, Judy, Sutton, they all had terrible seasons. I think this is exactly what they needed. A guy that's really going to get in there, set the locker room straight, make sure everyone knows what direction, what the game plan is, and just let Russ be himself without having to call plays or do whatever Hackett was trying to do, because that clearly did not work. And I think this is going to give the Broncos offense as a whole, a big boost.
So do we all agree there? Sorry, Linus. Do we all agree that this is positive for the Broncos? Has to be. I mean, you're trading a fucking first and second for him, right?
Yeah, no, but the point I was going to make was like, do I think it's going to be as bad as last season? No. Do I think the Broncos are still cooked? Yeah. Like,
no, stop that. Stop that.
I think it's the opposite when you're saying, like, he has to just let Russ play. I think, if anything, Russ did better when, like, the coach kind of, like, schemed everything up rather than just, like...
Well, that's my point, is if you just let Russ play quarterback and not be the offensive coordinator and the quarterback like they were trying to do last year, that works. We've seen that work, where with Marty Schottenheimer and the other OCs that he's had in Seattle, where if they call the plays, Russ can do well. Russ just, whatever was going on last year, where he tried to let Russ be Aaron Rodgers, and that's just not it. That doesn't work. So
I think one of the big issues from my perspective was that they tried to marry what Russ was doing in Seattle and what he had experience with Hackett's offense, and that just did not work. On top of the fact, like, let's be real, a lot of their players played like shit. They had a bunch of receiver injuries. Courtland Sutton sucked. Their running backs all got hurt, and then their offensive line was probably below average. So to me, though, I think that the discussion should be more towards Javonte Williams, because I think that the real benefit of Sean Payton is that you are getting someone that in the running game is just an absolute mastermind at scheming up runs for his offense. I mean, he's one of the few guys that when you watch these games, especially if you watch it back, like, all of the runs really tie off of each other. And we've seen the success that guys like Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara have had. I already thought that Javonte was a buy low. I'm even more in on Javonte.
The problem is that now the problem with that is his price is going to skyrocket now, along with everyone on this Broncos offense. That's the issue here.
But really, though? Because to me, like, okay, RB9...
They were down in the dumps.
They were down in the dumps. This is going to bring them up.
I don't think he was down in the dumps. I think that's a little unfair, because no matter what, you still weren't going to get this buy low offer on Javonte, but you could actually attain him not at the price. Because in this year, I think even as me as a Javonte guy, he was overpriced. He just was. He was going at the turn in startups like, man, that's just really expensive for a guy who really hadn't proven. I think we can make the same argument for all those running backs, right? Swift, Najee, all these dudes that really hadn't proven that these were top tier running backs, like long term, right? More than just a 1 year success. All got dinged a little bit, but man, I think this is huge for Javonte. And I think especially, dude, look at the targets he was getting earlier this season. I think that's an element of his game with Payton that is going to be unlocked even more, and he's going to see these consistent targets, and it's not being priced in.
Javonte was RB2 for a brief blip of time, back like 4 or 5 months ago, right before the season started, essentially. Then his injury happened and he crashed all the way down to a low of running back 15. And yeah, now we're seeing him right around the running back 8. I think he's probably going to push back into the running back 5 spot after this is all said and done before the NFL draft. I just intrinsically, like, I don't know if I'd rather. We're going to talk about the running backs, so maybe I'll save this point for like later on. But I just don't know if I'd be willing to give up one of those firsts that are like, I'm going to assume you have to give up at least 108 to get Javonte. Like, is that ridiculous?
Yeah. No, it's not crazy.
I think any Javonte owner would be expecting more than
more.
108.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Probably have to be like a 105.
That's what I'm saying. It'd probably be more, and I think I'd rather just take the rookie at that pick than him.
Well, I mean,
let me ask you this. Because this is a trade I was trying to do with Lounis, and we can settle the price right now.
Okay.
And then me and Lounis can go think about it. I wanted to move Breece Hall into Javonte.
What'd you say?
Because I wanted to move Breece Hall into Javonte because I think that's a much more realistic trade. The person that has Javonte, because there still is risk with Javonte, right? He's coming off the injury. The Broncos quite very well could still be an absolute fucking shit show, right? Like Lounis was saying, that is not impossible. So if you want to move into the right now RB1, what do you think the price difference is there now with Sean Payton?
I'd still need a decent amount, but I'm a big Breece Hall truther.
See, if I was the guy giving up Javonte, I wouldn't want to give up a whole lot.
What do you consider a whole lot?
Well, what's fair? What is the fair
so keep
price?
Keep trade cut says 205 in this upcoming draft. Or the likes of like a Jordan Love or Geno Smith.
I'll give up a little more than that. Sure.
I wouldn't do that. I'd want first.
I was gonna say I think I wouldn't imagine 205 will get it done. I think what I had in mind would be the difficult conflict is the guy giving up Breece Hall probably wants the late first.
But the guy giving up Javonte is going to say it's the same risk, right? Both are coming off of ACL injuries, and both
to want the late first for Breece Hall.
No, it's not a crazy ask, but I just don't think it gets done because at the end of the day, the guy who has Javonte is going to say, okay, well, I can get the same running back and keep my first.
But it's not the same running back.
So I offered to Lounis out the gate Breece Hall and my 24 second for Javonte and Lounis's 24 first. Which I can
you a pick swap, a first for a second pick swap.
First second, because I understand like I wouldn't want to move off of Javonte plus a first for Breece Hall either. Even
I'm in that boat. I wouldn't want to do it. I just don't think that's worth it. If I get if I'm getting a pick swap, I start to think about it. But I still think the difference, because like next year comes around, right? Both coming off the injury.
It also depends where these picks are.
Right, but I mean, sure. I mean, I'm assuming it's going to be in the 108 to 112 range, just because if you're like making a move like this, you're probably pretty close, and you're just trying to push yourself over the top. But that's the issue, is if I'm that close, I'd rather just keep my guy who's also a top 10 dynasty running back and then just pick up a top 10 draft pick. Like, that's just what I'd do. Like that, there's no way that the difference between those two is going to be that many points. It's just not going to be just looking at it. Like, even if Breece Hall is running back 1, Javonte would have to finish like running back 20 to really be that much different. And I just don't think that's the case. He's going to finish still as a top 15 running back if he plays all 17 games.
I get your point. I wouldn't have used RB1 though. I think if you made the same point with like RB5, I'd be like, you know what? Okay, I could agree with that. But RB1, like that would be an L because you're probably losing out on a potential championship if he's RB1.
Yeah.
Sure, but like that's my point. Is if he finishes RB5 and the other one has to finish RB25. Which is just not going to happen.
Well, RB5 is like difference making running back. RB25 is like waiver wire. Like you could pick up.
No,
I see Jake's point though. I think Jake is going a little crazy on the boundary. Okay. But if Javonte finishes RB16 versus Breece Hall finishes RB5, is that difference worth a first round pick? Probably not.
I mean, I could tell you based on sleepers points per game. Actually, I don't know. Sometimes their math is a little little crazy, but I'm gonna try and figure it out.
How about this? Because I think you have 201 in that league. What about Javonte on 201 for Breece Hall?
I would do that trade. I think the reason I hesitated at the first one was because my team finished maybe like third in points for, and I think it was like my next year's first, and Javonte for Breece Hall and Parker second, who had just won the championship. I think that's why I hesitated, because that first could be like 105 in the 24 draft. I don't know what my team, like obviously we have to wait and see, versus like for like 210. I think that's why I hesitated first. But something like Javonte and 201 for Breece Hall, I would do.
That's the type of trade that I think can get done, just because it doesn't. I know it's not that much different than, let's say, giving up a 110 versus a 201, but it's the label on it. One's a first round pick, one's a second round pick, and I think you're more likely to get a deal done with the Javonte owner if you say, sure, I'll give you a Javonte in a second for Breece Hall. That makes sense. But when you start throwing in the first round, the difference between them in points, it starts to get like not really worth it, just in my opinion here. So look, if you love Breece Hall, I understand. Like go get your guy. I'm not gonna.
Can I switch the topic really quickly before we move on from Payton? Because I want to touch on Jerry Jeudy, because I saw a lot of people on the Dynasty subreddit. Jerry Jeudy was the guy getting a majority of the hype. It was mainly Jeudy and Russ. Does this impact Judy's value for any of you guys?
Yes.
Really, to me, maybe it's because at the end of this year I started like buying in on Jeudy at the price that he was at, but I feel like this doesn't really impact me at all.
It doesn't change too much for me, only because I agree with you. I think the end of the season improved his stock, and I don't change it much from like since the improvement that happened at the end of the season, because it did go up at the end of the year. Because then also I'm taking into account, like, do we think Sutton is just cooked? Not like trash, not like I don't know, Rams Allen Robinson, but like
I would actually lean more towards no. I think that
I do think Jeudy will be the number one over him. But,
oh yeah, and he was when they played.
Yeah, but I'm saying, and I think it'll be by a decent amount. I don't even think it'll be a 1A, 1B, but it's like more so like, is he just going to be a number two, or is he like Rams Allen Robinson?
Yeah, no. Courtland Sutton's a tough one to gauge, just because I feel like his price has gotten so low. It's to the point where I don't want to move him for a mid to late second. That's entirely too low. I do think Courtland Sutton is a good piece to package together, because even though his value's down, he still has that name brand a little bit, right? You can get people to buy into Allen Robinson. I think if you do a package deal, I think what was his name? Skull Dynasty is the one I saw do that, and that's where I'm getting the idea, is that he traded Courtland Sutton in a package, and I was like, it was a Godwin trade. The Godwin trade he showed last episode. It was Sutton and some other mid player for Godwin. Yeah, it was like, trade. Holy crap! Like, when you first look at the trade, you're like, oh shit, you're getting Sutton and I forget what other player he got, but imagine you get two Suttons, right? Like, oh shit, you're getting two Suttons for Godwin. Like, that could be a lot. But then you look at what they're actually going for and what you could trade the pieces for individually. It's like, okay, you got Godwin for potentially like 2 seconds.
Yeah.
All right. To circle back real quick on the Javonte Breece Hall, I did look it up. It's a 70 point difference from running back 5 to 16 this year. I couldn't get points per game, but essentially that's a 5 point per game. But the 70 points is the difference. I was going through a bunch of leagues from a potential bye week team to outside looking in at the playoffs, or like a 5th or 6th place team in the playoffs. So it is a significant boost,
right? But you're also going to get the points from the first round pick that you would have to give up. If that was the argument here. I wasn't saying
sure. All right, we're going to go in circles about it, but yeah. Moral of the story: I also wouldn't be too happy giving up a first on top of Javonte to give Breece Hall, but I just like Breece Hall so much, I'm not going to part with him unless I'm seeing a first coming back my way. That's now fair. Talking about Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton and the rest of these Broncos, my opinion is it just can't get worse from what it was last year. So I'm just going to cautiously buy. I'm not going to go all the way in and say like, oh, like I'm shooting them up my rankings or whatnot, but I would rather have these guys on my team at cost than not, especially Cortland Sutton. I just think last year was kind of an anomaly. It was bad for everyone. I'm not going to ding him more just because he didn't look great.
Yeah, but the scary part about last year with it being like an anomaly is it was mainly like his first main action back since that injury, like the major.
No, it wasn't a major knee injury 2.5 years ago, basically at this point. His knee injury?
I might have that incorrect. I apologize if I do.
Sutton. Because, the year before. So, yeah, no, he got hurt in 2020. And then he hasn't looked the same since when he got hurt in 2020. But I'm still willing to buy in on a knee injury.
The injuries are what scares me. And then what was the injury that ended his year this year?
Did his year get ended by injury?
Wasn't he out?
Did he get hurt? I thought he was primarily.
He missed 2 weeks. He missed 2 weeks in the middle of the year, week 14 and 15.
Okay.
Nothing in this year.
I apologize. I had the games wrong.
Yeah, his injury this year was just that he sucked.
Okay, never mind.
All right, well.
All right, yeah, he didn't suck. He just wasn't good.
Look, the thing about these kind of receivers is like, I don't want, like, at some point they do become like roster cloggers where it's like, how many of these like middle of pack guys can I have on my team? But when you're telling me like it's a late second to get Cortland Sutton, maybe a mid second to get Cortland Sutton, or I could get off a player that I think is overvalued like Cole Kmet, and get Cortland Sutton for him, I'm not gonna say no to that and just park my value in what I deem to be a safer asset.
Cole Kmet just caught the most random stray.
Well, that's who was on Keep Trade Cut. It was,
that was
an equivalent.
Maybe you said Cole Kmet.
Sorry.
All right, other head coaching news: DeMeco Ryans to Houston. Apparently, the news around this was that the Broncos had like interviewed DeMeco Ryans, and then they wanted to get Sean Payton. But then when they heard that DeMeco Ryans was about to sign with the Texans, then they tried to like snatch him from the Texans or something.
Yeah, it was weird. They pulled the trigger on the Saints offer once they saw DeMeco got hired.
I don't know why. If your options are between Sean Payton and I get you're giving up a first and everything, but like, I just think you're going to either take a gamble on.
I thought it was a bad trade for the Broncos, even though I think so. It's obviously going to help.
Yeah,
I don't know. You already traded away like your first. Which the one this year is already early. Then it's like, do you really think like this
but that's a sunk cost. That's a sunk cost. We have to talk about like what's.
There's a decent chance like you're stuck still with Russ on that huge deal. You don't really have first, and then you look in your division, and then you have Mahomes, Herbert, and possibly Brady. Like that's hard.
But how many? You make this move because you pair Payton and Russ together. That's the bottom line. If you want a chance in this division, Russ has to play like we've seen Russ play in his career, and I think this is the best chance out there, at least like available to do that. And that's why. Okay, you give up a first, it sucks. But listen, it's a first this year. You move on. There's not like.
Dude, we're going back to the Broncos when we brought up the DeMeco Ryans segment.
Well, you brought it up. You said the Broncos were gonna, hire DeMeco Ryans.
I mean, that is true. I did bring it up. The only thing that's kind of tough about the DeMeco, we're talking about this hire, is we have to see who the OC is. So I'm assuming DeMeco, like he's not going to be the one. I mean, he's going to obviously pick his OC, but I think it's dependent on obviously who he picks. I feel like it's safe to assume they're going to take a quarterback at 1 or at 2.
That'd be crazy if they didn't.
Yeah,
they're just like, we're riding with Davis.
No, I think I 1,000% think they're gonna draft one, but I don't think it's like set in stone. Bryce Young, I could see this as like, I think the shock would be if they just randomly went like Levis or Stroud.
I don't get the move of hiring a defensive guy if your idea is you're going to draft a quarterback with your first pick. Like
that's why I'm saying
I
we
like.
Have to see who the OC is.
Yeah, I like matching offensive head coaches with the young quarterback kind of thing. And sure, like maybe they could hit on the offensive coordinator. It is going to be an attractive position, assuming they are going to get this like rookie quarterback. But I don't know. Like I would just rather get the offensive head
No,
coach.
I agree, because that happens most of the time. But like in certain situations, it can work. Like, and I know I hate people using like the Josh Allen comparison with like rookie quarterbacks, but this isn't really like that kind of comparison where people are saying, "Oh, see, he had bad stats too." I mean, more so in the case of, for him, he had a defensive head coach, but they just nailed the OC hire. They had Dable there. So I don't know. I want to wait to see who it is first.
I think that from the head coaching perspective, you just want to get the best guy. I don't care what side of the ball, special teams, off it. Like, I just want to get the best guy, and the guy who's just going to run the team the best way and not do a lot of the stupid shit that I feel like we see a lot of teams do. And I don't know, just like waste assets and bad game management. And then obviously there's bad schemes and stuff, but I just feel like you need someone, especially in the modern game, who just kind of, he's the gamer, man. He's the one, being creative and shit, not the other way around. I think we need to wait for the OC for anything dynasty relevant.
Yeah. Has the NFL just deemed Eric Bieniemy not like head coach worthy? Because like he was a big name 2 years ago, even
he has the resume for it. I mean, the reports have been, I guess they think like personality wise, they don't think he'd be a good head coach, which I mean none of us would really ever know. But so it's kind of hard to judge because he's had the resume to do it for a few years.
I think
we've seen Andy Reid's coaching tree especially be like arguably the best in the NFL. Andy Reid's coaching tree. I think you obviously say Belichick's the best one, but his coaching tree hasn't really been great. Versus Andy Reid's has been good. You see like Doug Peterson, and then like even like the disciples of his disciples, like Nick Sirianni now came from under Frank Wright, who was under Doug Peterson, who was under Andy Reid. And there's another Andy Reid one I'm forgetting. It may have been like Harbaugh or something, but
yeah, well, all right. But
I just think that you like the amount of incompetence around a lot of these teams, I think a lot of it is with the pressure of the fans is really high, it seems like. So many scenarios where teams will shell out millions and millions of dollars on these contracts, and then the next year, all of a sudden, the plan is full 180'd, and now people get can't. Like, there's just no patience. There's no multi-year plans for a lot of these teams. It's just a fucking shit show. It's just a shit show for a lot of these people. I think that's one of the major reasons why that he hasn't, or maybe he just sucks at interviewing.
I think that's been like the rumor, or maybe someone reported it, but I think it's I don't know, because he has the resume too, like I said.
Yeah, but what other young, not even necessarily young, like super successful offensive coordinator has not, that is basically established the top level quarterback, right? The pinnacle of what you want as a team. Who hasn't gotten that opportunity? You went through 9 different Belichick merchants and none of them worked out. Like, and they're still getting shots, right? They're still getting shots.
Yeah.
Like
you're talking about the Texans?
We're just talking about anyone at this point.
I mean, because
wants to hire the guy.
As far as Belichick disciples and the Texans, I mean, Bill O'Brien, like, he gets a lot of flack, but he did do a good job with the Texans.
Yeah, but also I'm looking at the Andy Reid coaching tree now. He's got like John Harbaugh, Sean McDermott, Doug Peterson. I know that you could argue how good they are as head coaches.
Yeah, but I think Shanahan. I would rather Shanahan's. I think you got Gary Kubiak, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan, Saleh, McDaniel, LaFleur.
No, that's fair.
Arthur Smith. He's got there's 8 head coaches in the NFL right now that are from the Shanahan coaching tree.
Yeah, that actually be the best one.
All right. Anything else for the news and notes?
No, I think that's really it.
Happening this week. Go Birds.
Yeah, whatever. I don't know why I'm saying whatever. I wanted the Eagles to win that game. I kind of
why?
Because I don't like the 49ers.
What you got against the Niners? Who cares?
It's all the drama, and then
I wanted the Bengals, but
I wanted the Bengals, and since the Bengals didn't win, I guess now I want the Eagles. But whatever.
There you go.
doesn't matter what we're talking about now. Instead, let's talk about the prospects. I'll give Frank time to pull up any clips he might have, but I'm just going to go down the list here and talk about the first one we have. And of course, it's the one who I always don't know how to pronounce. That's Devon Achane, I think they say.
Announcer said it Achane. I don't know if they were right or not.
I thought it was a chain.
All right, Achane. I do know he's from Texas A&M. He was. I wouldn't call him. It would be mean to call him Isaiah Spiller's backup because they kind of did split carries when Isaiah Spiller was there. But to me, my issue with Devon is his size. And Frank, I'm going to put it on you to tell me why I'm wrong and I shouldn't be concerned about his size.
Dude, I just feel like because I had similar concerns. Lounis, what are you watching over there? No, I had similar concerns about Devon Achane's size. I've kind of been a little bit of a size merchant recently in Dynasty. Like I've always kind of just been the dude. Listen, unless you're just ridiculous, I'm not going to draft you if you're undersized. And that was a lot of the reasons why I didn't like the Kyron Williamses of the world and all the other small backs that have come and failed before in the modern day. But dude, when I watched Achane, first off, I don't think he's 185, right? I'm going to come out and say, I think he's just bigger than 185.
He runs bigger, I'll tell you that much.
How often does it happen? How often does it happen that the running back comes out bigger than expected? Especially
Not
when they're
often.
under like
Not often.
Eddie Lacy.
Yeah, that's what
Eddie Lacy
on the other side, like Ramondre Stevenson.
And of all those times, is it ever good? Like,
yeah,
No, it's usually not good.
yeah, I don't think he's gonna have like. I think he's probably is what he is, like around 5'9", around 180.
The
Where's
problem
he right now in rookie drafts? He's a second round pick, right?
Yeah, mid-second. Yeah. I like him more than that. I personally have him late first, early second. I have him a little higher. I'm more on board with Frank here. I just think he's really good. I understand he's really small, but as I said earlier, he runs bigger than he's listed at least. On top of that, he has good hands, good top end speed. Like he ticks a lot of boxes for me here that you want in a good running back. But the only downside I'm seeing is really his size, which is obviously you can't improve on really how big you are, right? He's 5'9", 185. That frame only holds so much weight before it's a problem. So I understand the concerns, but I know not many small backs become this workhorse that you want in fantasy here, but he just ticks so many boxes that I'm willing to take the risk on him. I think obviously draft capital is going to play a big role here, just because if he goes in the 5th round, then it's all out the window. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah. So one thing that I will say real quick before you go, Frank, because it'll be fast. One thing that I will give him credit for that hasn't been brought up. I think he's a very solid pass blocker, which will help get him on the field faster, especially in third down situations where people think he can excel at. I think he can be a good receiving back. But
he is a good receiving back. The problem is his pass blocking is just very. He's undersized, so if you have a DN coming at him, he's going to get run over every single time.
No, but I even think, I'm sure you could run over, but I even think, that's the issue with a lot of these young backs coming out is they can't pass block for shit. I think
we have this pass blocking argument every offseason. It doesn't mean anything. We've had this argument before.
Yeah, but no, it plays an impact. It's why you see Samaj Piran getting double the snaps of Joe Mixon in the conference playoff game. Like,
that's because their offensive line is like the worst.
Yeah, but I'm saying that's a lot of these teams. The one thing I will say, I kind of am with JT in terms of concerns about his size and like, will he ever really be used in like goal line situations to get touchdowns? Will he be able to have like 15 plus touches a game? I don't know. And that's why he's kind of firmly in the second for me.
For reference, Frank took him at 109 in our mock draft. My problem, and I said it with the size and everything, I do think he's actually a pretty good receiving back. He was at Texas A&M. But I think that's going to be what his role translates into. I don't think he's going to be a bell cow just purely based off size. I just don't see it. He actually was pretty good though at forcing missed tackles, which is why I'm sure Frank's so high on him. He has a high forced missed tackle rate. But at the end of the day, I think what we're looking at is going to be much closer to a third down back than an every down bell cow. And to me, drafting that at the end of the first, second turn, wherever he's going to start going in mocks, I'm not that interested.
So what's funny is that I love Achane, and I think that his receiving ability is one of the major knocks I have on him, which is like for someone being small, and he actually caught a lot of balls. I think that it's more of his route running. I think he's consistently late, didn't feel when the quarterback was under pressure very well. Lounis is right. I did think he was a pretty good pass blocker for someone his size, but this is where I have the misconception with the community with Achane, is that I do see him as a workhorse back. I think that you can go through, and if you look at as the A&M season progressed, they relied on Achane for a huge part of their offense, and it was started actually kind of clicking. I feel like their offense completely 180'd from, we're going to try and be a team that passes the ball a good amount, that spreads teams out, and then all of a sudden, come their bowl game against LSU, they're lining up just like 22 personnel running power counter all day long, and Devon Achane is completely just going nuts. I think Achane, he not that his floor is this, but the fact that freaking ETN is really successful, I don't think Achane is as good of an athlete and like a pure runner as ETN. But I think that they both offer a very similar level of like physicality / power, where, listen, there is going to be times where these bigger dudes completely wreck them, but they're both so fast and they have like an underrated amount of power to their game, the both of them, that they can definitely get by when they need to. And then on top of that, I just think that Achane is a way more developed runner than ETN was and possibly is right now. Achane to me has that innate ability to see the cutbacks, like not see the cutbacks, feel the cutbacks, right? He's not looking necessarily where he's going. You'll sell a run, boom, cut it back. Freaking super speed, right? He's got crazy long speed. He's a track runner guy. So I'm really in on Achane. I will love drafting him in the second round. I really think that come the NFL draft, he's going to go a little bit higher than people are initially anticipating. If I were an NFL team come that late second, I think that there's a handful of running backs that I would want to pick from, and he right now would be one of them.
This might be...
Sorry, JT, go ahead.
This might be a bad faith argument, but do you know, based on rushing attempts, but what number running back based on rushing attempts was 200 pounds or less? So, for example, Derrick Henry was the first running back with rushing attempts last year. He weighs 247 pounds. What number running back was the first running back to weigh 200 pounds or less on rushing attempts?
Well, there is no, like, he's an outlier in terms of the weight.
Austin Eckler at 20.
Yeah. It's going to be something, because there are, like, it doesn't really exist. You can list all the running backs under 200 pounds, and a majority of them from the previous draft prospects and the guys in the NFL now, basically 99.9% of them have turned out to be garbage. My argument, though, is that I think we're comparing two different types of players. I don't think a lot of these smaller running backs were as good of a prospect as Achane is. That's my problem. I think the only dude who was close to it was that freaking Lions dude. What's his name? Javid Best.
Best. Yes.
And I think it's unfair to consider him a huge bust with the damn injury he had, because he
wasn't a bust. He was playing well. It was just injuries.
Frank, you don't have to convince, you need the NFL, you need coaches, offensive coordinators, running back coaches to be convinced.
His draft capital is going to ultimately tell the whole story with him.
You need NFL teams to be think
I think there's realistically, he's going to go in the third for all the reasons that you guys listed. I value him in the second, but I imagine he's going to go early third.
Do you view him significantly ahead of? I don't know. I'll try to think of some of those like style backs, like Kenneth Gainwell coming out, or like
significantly
James
ahead of
Cook.
Gainwell.
I know he's ahead of those two,
significantly ahead of Cook.
but I'm asking, significant. Okay.
I think
so you think he's closer to ETN than those two?
Yeah, like the problem that with Achane compared to ETN and Kenneth Walker is like Kenneth Walker and ETN, you saw the physical ability and their ability to make guys miss, but they just didn't have the power. They relied on that ability to make guys miss to account for, sometimes they would take an extra step in the wrong direction. Sometimes they would see a crease a third of a second or a quarter of a second later than the elite backs in the league, right? And it was reasons like that I was lower on those types of dudes, which I feel Achane has. So even though he's not that top end tackle breaker, ideal model running back, dude, I'm getting him in the second right now. I really think he should be a late first.
That's fair.
But yeah, it's ultimately going to come down to the draft capital and the landing spot. But if I were doing a startup draft right now, Achane would be one of the few rookie players I would be drafting way above his ADP.
Oh, all right.
I'm with Frank on this one. I really think he's a guy that's going to be underpriced in rookie drafts for sure.
Next guy on our list is Kendre Miller.
This is I hate and love Kendre Miller at the same time.
All right, well that's unfortunate because I also love and hate Kendre Miller.
I'm in the same boat. I think we all love and hate Kendre Miller.
The thing with Kendre Miller, like I watched him, and it's funny. The guy that I immediately thought I felt like I was watching Breece Hall. The problem is that this dude is not the athlete that Breece Hall was.
No.
But they have a very similar running style where it's extremely patient, but at the same time, they have those runs where they will just jump cut into a hole immediately, right? So like this really nice blend of being patient on most runs, but when you see that crease open up, jump cutting into it, he just doesn't have that athletic ability that Breece Hall did. Breece Hall was taking these runs to the house, making an extra guy miss, right? Kendre Miller's not that type of player. But is he close?
So yes and no, right? Because I think he has great vision for a running back, great, jump cut, move, all that stuff you want to look for. The problem for him is he doesn't have that top end speed. He doesn't have that elusiveness, and he's just a zero in the passing game pretty much. So I just don't know, because he's a really good pure runner, but he lacks the traits to make him a great runner, and he doesn't make up for it in the passing game. So it's one of these guys where, like, sure, in the right system, he could be very successful, but there's a lot of times where you could look and go, okay, he's going to be the, a complementary back in anywhere. Like, it just, that's where I have the issue here, is that he doesn't have these traits to be a great NFL running back, and it's of no fault of his own. Like, he has the frame, right? He's listed at 6'0" and 218, so he has the big frame, he has the vision and the cutting and this, but he just can't finish runs, right? He can't take it to the house. He can't turn that 10-yard run into a 40-yard run.
He doesn't have that like elite athleticism.
Right,
so I want to
exactly.
say two things. One, I wish he hadn't gotten injured in that game against Michigan, because he was actually off to a good start that game. That's what I was doing, looking it up. He had like 8 carries for 57 yards to start against Michigan's defense, but then got injured. I would have liked to see how he would have done there, and then obviously against Georgia the following game. The question I'll ask for you guys, because especially now with how like kind of prevalent it is for any running back in fantasy, do you guys have he didn't show a ton of receiving ability in college, but people think he has the talent to, or like I should have said, like, he doesn't have a ton of like receiving production, at least unless I'm mistaken, in college, but people think he might have the ability to. What do you guys think of it?
The problem I have with that is, like, okay, some of these guys that fit the mold to me of that type of player are like, okay, Dalvin Cook, okay, like Le'Veon Bell, at least coming into the league, Ramondre Stevenson. This is the type of player that Kendre Miller is going to have to turn into if he wants to be one of the top running backs. Probably.
Well,
Yeah.
Unless he like becomes a Jay Ajayi, but I'm not really sure you want to take Jay Ajayi with where he's going in these rookie drafts, right? That would probably be more of an avoid. So I don't know. I think that right now, to me, Kendre Miller, I'm going to need to see, is he testing in the combine, or is that injury going to knock him out of that?
I'm not sure. I don't think there's a set answer yet.
I'll tell you guys what. This is where I'm going with my love and hate for Kendre Miller. I'm going to give you guys a little story, and I'll see how you could follow along with me and see how we can reconcile my issue here. So 2 years ago, I was super into this running back coming out of Oklahoma, coming out of Ohio State, called Trey Sermon. And Trey Sermon, I thought was like, decently good. He was a senior coming out, but I was pretty high on Trey Sermon. I liked his work and everything. But I was like,
this is a big difference too, because isn't he still 20?
Well, hold on. You gotta follow along here. Follow along.
Sorry.
Trey Sermon, I was like, oh, like he's pretty good. I really like him. I think he's gonna get good draft capital. I'll take him in like the early second round of rookie drafts.
Mm-hmm.
But my problem that I had then was, well, there's this other guy, Ramondre Stevenson at Oklahoma, that like kicked him out. And like, Ramondre Stevenson also looks decent and stuff, but like, how much weight am I putting into this? Like, now we have a guy that I really like this year, Zach Evans, who played at TCU and got kicked out by Kendre Miller.
He did.
So am I making the same mistake again, being higher on Zach Evans than I am Kendre Miller if he's getting kicked out? And again, similar thing. Frank literally mentioned Ramondre Stevenson as one of the names, like potential for pass catching work. Ramondre Stevenson only caught like 28 passes in college. I think Kendre Miller, I just pulled up his stats, caught like 30 something passes. No, he caught 29 passes, basically the same. I don't know. Am I making the same mistake again? Having Zach Evans above Kendre Miller. We're going to talk about Zach Evans in a little bit.
So I understand if there's like physical trait concerns. It's so hard to put stock into like this person had to transfer, because how many times have we seen that like to be the other case? Like it's like, well, we look at situations where it's like Burrow had to transfer for Barrett, and obviously there's like more, but I do understand that comp, because I do think, especially when it's like not a quarterback, like you should get on the field, even though we've seen another example is Jameson Williams transferring out of Bama or transferring out of Ohio State, then having like the best college season at Bama.
Yeah, but is Jameson Williams better than Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, maybe,
Nope.
Jackson Smith? And
he's not.
Yeah.
Nope, he's not.
He transferred before JSN. But
well, Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson?
Well, we'll see on them. I think he's better than Olave.
All right. Nonetheless, though, because like there's been a lot of debate on Kendre Miller, but I'm curious as to where you guys value him, because I went back and forth a lot on him and Tank Bigsby. I think there are two players that I just really struggled on where I wanted to plop them. All in all, until I see Kendre Miller is a below average athlete, and even then, I'm not going to just completely destroy him as a prospect, but I'll have to bump him down a little bit. I actually don't mind Kendre Miller at ADP. Right now, he's going like very late first, like very early second. Right now, the running back carousel is kind of a shit show. Like who you have as your RB3 to like RB7 kind of changes person to person. But he's generally speaking in people's top 5 running backs, more in like that 5, 6, 7th running back off the board, 4th running back off the board.
He went 202 in our draft to Jake. He was the 5th running back off the board.
And the reason why I ended up, just kind of being like, okay, I do like Kendre Miller at ADP, is just the way that he's just such a developed runner. Like in this game here against Kansas State, this is their Big 12 championship. The way that he sets up his runs, you see this time and time again in his games. He fakes going into one hole to create a little bit of leverage for himself. and then gets the outside, forces a missed tackle. Like he's amazing at setting up these runs, his patience, his vision. I just think that there's enough factors that go in his favor that I'd rather be in than be out, even though, yes, he is a risky prospect, and I'm not really sure he has that like ridiculous level upside. But, like a Ramondre Stevenson, he is more expensive than Ramondre, at least as of right now. But I just think that come long term, he's a good player to hold on to for the next couple of years. Even in a handcuff role, because one of the things I like about him too, he's the type of player you just give him the football a shit ton. If you're in one of those grimy games late in the season, your quarterback has an injured wrist, he's the type of player that you could just say, okay, you know what? Now our game plan's hand it off to Kendre Miller. And he gets better as the game goes on. I have the freaking forced missed tackles to prove it. He gets more forced missed tackles at the end of the games when you get 20 plus carries on him. So I think that'll help him out if he ends up in that handcuffy role, kind of like a Khalil Herbert that we saw, a dude that you can just give the ball to a shit ton if he's in that handcuff role.
All right. Any other additions to Kendre Miller, or are we going to move on to our next guy, who is Sean Tucker? Guys, I am all the way in on Sean Tucker.
Really?
Let me see if I can find my big board here. It's behind me. When we did the draft, I was willing to take Sean Tucker as high as, I believe, 105, 106.
Excuse me?
Yeah, and you took him at 108. I think he's starting to, it's hidden under there. I'm not going to be able to grab the big board. But he's starting to rival Jahmyr Gibbs as my running back, too, I think, in this draft.
Really?
To answer Joe's question, he said, who's the RB3 in this class? I mean, right now, I would say Sean Tucker, but I think I might be saying Jahmyr Gibbs in a little bit, depending on how they all test. Because I think, like, when you look at Sean Tucker in college, and Frank was the one who really put me on to him a couple of years ago, he's been nothing but, like, essentially elite in college. And, he doesn't get the credit that he deserves as far as like a receiving back too. He caught 36 passes last year in 12 games. That's very good for a college running back, especially one that's coming out of Syracuse, where there's not a whole lot going on there. I think Sean Tucker, if he gets the draft capital, I think he will, which I think is a second round pick. I'm going to probably bump him up to my running back too, depending on what happens with
you think he's going to be a second round pick in the NFL draft?
Yeah.
I'd be shocked.
Yeah, there's my problem too, because like you said, I've loved Sean Tucker for so long now.
Where did Brian Robinson?
He's so much better than Brian Robinson. And
Brian Robinson went in the third round, or the fourth round, one of the two.
I'll pull up Brian.
But the problem, dude, I wanted to be in on Sean Tucker because, like, listen, if you look at the stats, it's insane. He produced as like a super young guy. He has the receiving work. I just don't think he's a developed running back. I really would be, if I was an NFL team, I'd have some serious question marks if he could be my day one running back right now.
Brian Robinson was the 98th pick in the draft.
Everyone that you've ever heard out of Syracuse absolutely loves Sean Tucker, and all they do is rave about how good of a person he is and how hard of a worker he is and how much of a leader he is. So, like, shit, everyone that we've heard that about, like, it helps, right? Like Jalen Hurts, Gabe Davis, even though Gabe Davis isn't this amazing-esque player, it's like if you drafted him in the late 30 or rookie drafts, you're pretty fucking happy with the return that you've gotten on him. Sean Tucker's just too expensive for me. I like forced missed tackle per touch, 23%. That is pretty shit, all things considered. That is not great for my forced missed tackle tracking. I mean, right now that's second lowest in the class. Yikes. But he has the tools. Like I see the quickness, right? I see the nice blend of power and quick. That quickness he has is really fucking good. It's just, why can't you make D-backs miss more consistently?
I think he's kind of too hesitant or like not as kind of quick to his moves when faced with like initial contact.
I think his vision's kind of shoddy. His overall feel and pacing on these runs is kind of shoddy.
I do like him. I haven't finalized my running back rankings. I still want to go more because honestly, Miller might be my RB3. I still have to think about it. I still want to watch more, but I'm considering. I was considering Sean Tucker at RB3, but whichever one I go with, I think he's closer to the RB4 than he is Jahmyr Gibbs. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is in a different tier.
No, we'll talk about Jahmyr Gibbs in another episode.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in a future episode. Yeah,
I think you guys are like, I am looking at the NFL mock draft database, and they say like 111th pick for his roughly what he's being mocked at. So that's like a 4th round pick. But I just like, you look at Sean Tucker and his overall traits and his qualities, and Sean Tucker, the running back, his best season trumps any of Brian Robinson's seasons. He's coming out as a true junior. Brian Robinson was a 5th-year senior. Like, there's a lot that encourages me and says Sean Tucker is definitely a day 2 pick. Like, I'm pretty confident Sean Tucker is a day 2 pick. Now, whether he's the 2nd round or 3rd round, I guess that part's up for debate. But I'm in on Sean Tucker being drafted higher than most would anticipate. And I just think this guy has the chance to be a bell cow. If he truly is 210 pounds, he has the chance to be a bell cow running back for a team. And then you could get him in the late 1st. I would assume he's going in. I mean, I was willing to take him at like 106, 105, 106. But I think you could get him late 1st, maybe even early 2nd. Yeah, probably 106 because I think I still value.
Yeah, but okay, 106, 107.
It's just too expensive for me. I think,
but you don't have to take him that high.
Yeah, I think a late 1st. The thing is that I just think the risk is so high on him, and I don't think he's as good of a player as people make him out to be right now. But I do believe in the potential. 100%. He's got the skill set and the work ethic, and it seems like
if he's not,
I'll take him in a late 1st.
If he's not a day 2 pick, I'll completely pivot off Sean Tucker and be like, all right, I was wrong. The NFL doesn't value him like I did. But as of right now, if he's a day 2 pick, I'm so in on Sean Tucker.
I just see him going in the top 10 too consistently. I've seen a lot of people have him as their RB3. A lot of these rookie mocks, he's going top 10. Dude, I am not taking him in the top 10 if I'm doing a rookie draft today. I love Sean Tucker. Like that's the thing I hate about it is that I fucking like his Twitter's awesome. I want this guy. Awesome. Like I want to get a Sean Tucker jersey. Like this guy is the best, but I just wasn't a huge fan of what I saw on tape. I think other people are discovering that as well. And yeah, we'll see what happens because NFL draft capital is going to be a huge concern with Sean Tucker. Also, like he played in the ACC, you know, like
Clemson.
Yeah. Etienne's borderline the running back 1 at this point in Dynasty.
Okay, Clemson's different, right? Because Clemson's good.
Sure, they're good, but like,
Etienne, you know,
they're still playing different teams. Was Etienne
special?
I mean, Etienne was pretty crazy
because he wasn't just performing in that conference; he was performing in like those championship games, those bowl games.
No, you're gonna make me pull up game by game.
And 1st round pick. Tucker. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Look what he did to Ohio State.
Yeah, again, you're on Clemson. It's not like, I don't know. You guys make it like more impressive, but you got the better talent around you to help block and everything. Like when you're the lone guy,
it's not like what the talent discrepancy between Clemson.
Well, I will say Syracuse's O-line in some of the games I watched, they were struggling.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
They had a couple dudes who could play, but it was just not consistent. I mean, it's fucking ACC football. Like, what do you expect? It's a trash conference. All right, who do you guys want to move into next? We got Tank Bigsby and we got Zach Evans.
Well, both I'm having a tough time. I mean, I kind of gave you my Zach Evans story. We could go with Zach Evans now if you want.
Yeah, sure.
It's just like he's someone I really like going into the season. He didn't like really. He was kind of not great this season. is how I describe it for Ole Miss. Like it was just meh.
Underwhelming.
Underwhelming is a good word for it. It was an underwhelming performance from Zach Evans. I still think he has traits to be good, and like I think I don't know. I think NFL teams should take Sean Tucker before they take Zach Evans, but I think it's more likely Zach Evans will go before Sean Tucker. So I don't know. And there was the whole he got kicked out of TCU for Kendre Miller. Kicked out is a tough word, but like he was, he transferred due to Kendre Miller being the starting running back. So where am I supposed to value Zach Evans?
I will tell you exactly where to value Zach Evans. I think that Zach Evans, if I were to give a draft prediction for what pick he goes, I'm going between pick 125 and 132. And I think that he should be valued.
Why did you give that range of picks?
Let me cook.
Okay.
It's hilarious that you said that because I'm looking at something right now where he's ranked the 132nd overall prospect. That's fucking hilarious. I don't know how you did that.
I am treating him the same as I did Joshua Kelly in my rookie draft.
Ouch,
I think
right.
he's going to be a guy that he gets that fourth round draft capital because he's such a great athlete and he has a couple of tools in his tool belt that are pretty good. He's got a stiff arm with one hand. It's either his left or his right. That's really phenomenal. And as a downhill runner, he's great. But that's really it. Like Joshua Kelly, what's the dude that what's his name? The LSU
Josh
back
Kelly
from
is a
last
tough
year.
Comparison. The LSU from back from last.
The running back out of LSU from last year. He set like the single season or the single game rushing yards record for them that one game against like Florida. He got drafted by the Niners in the Tyrion Davis-Price.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that like an NFL team is going to take the bait thinking like, oh, we've got a great downhill runner. He can play at the physicality NFL. We just need to develop the other stuff. And then they're going to show up, spend their fourth round pick on him. And then the chances that they develop the other stuff, I would estimate are somewhere between like 10% and 15% at best. And that's not someone I'm going to bet on, especially at his ADP, which is fucking bonkers right now.
Yeah. I've started to cool a lot on Zach Evans. He was someone I really liked, and like he was coming out of high school. I was hearing about it. Like he was a super high recruit and everything. He was supposed to be like, the next big thing with the running back. And he hasn't produced up to that standard is how I describe it. Like he had his solid freshman year. His sophomore year was nothing like that crazy. Kendre Miller was essentially doing the same thing as him on TCU. And then, like it was a lackluster junior year from Zach Evans to the point of that. I think he is getting overvalued now too. And call him Josh Kelly kind of hurts, but I don't want
Josh Kelly's kind of crazy.
Yeah, but I don't want to invest whatever the actual price of Zach Evans is right now. I know you were looking at the rookie mocks before, Frank. Where was he going in the Superflex startup?
Zach Evans. I think he's somewhere in like the early second. I've seen people take him in the first, and they're like the obvious Zach Evans truth. Here's one of the major problems I have with Zach Evans, other than the fact that I think like overall his feel and vision in the zone run game is just kind of shoddy to begin with. This is one of my major problems I have with these like bigger running backs in college, is that they're able to rely on their physicality in high school and in college, and it's almost like, yes, keep doing it, but I don't like it because it doesn't give me good upside in fantasy, and I think it limits your potential as a back. And here's an example of what I'm talking about here. This run play ends up, it's going over here somewhere to the left of the screen. Everyone, like this edge kind of collapses down and the tackle's pinning him inside, and he ends up having a one-on-one with a defender here, right? Like, to me, these are a lot of these scenarios. Like I do the overall force miss tackle tracking, but in my mind, right, and in my notes, I jot down these types of scenarios because to me, these are where you make or break as a running back, right? You have a one-on-one scenario, slightly behind the line of scrimmage. You're a little bit off leverage. Okay, let's see what you can do, right? And I think that the really elite running backs, the CMCs, the Saquons, the Nick Chubbs, right? The Javantes, that's why I really like him. And even the ETNs of the world, they're able to make this dude's life, this guy right here, fucking annoying. To the point where anytime this guy has a one-on-one trying to tackle this running back, he has that annoying feeling in his stomach because he knows that it's going to be annoying as hell to bring this guy down. And I do not get that feeling with Zach Evans whatsoever because time and time again, he kind of just tunnels. He doesn't take advantage of the fact that he has a potential one-on-one. And this is just one example. I'm not going to spend the entire podcast going over examples, but to me, I just want to see you put your foot in the ground, bounce this run, and challenge this guy one-on-one. It's 2nd and 7. We're not looking for a 2-yard run here. We're looking for an end zone play. We're at the 11-yard line. Give me a shot at the end zone. Use that stiff arm that is pretty good and your contact balance to cut outside, create some leverage, and try to make a big play. But instead, he kind of just tunnels up the middle, gets 2 yards, and this is not the type of, and this is why I comp him to a guy like Joshua Kelly. Zamir White is probably another dude that you can comp him to, right? It's just, at least with Zamir White, I like Zamir White in the with interior pressure early on these runs more than Zach Evans. But that to me is where the disconnect I have with Zach Evans is. And if I were an NFL team, I think the earliest I'd probably touch him, unless he was a super athlete, is probably the early 5th round.
That's fair.
Well,
that's my spiel. I'm done.
Sure, where you would draft him, though, and where NFL teams are going to draft him, I do think there's going to be a discrepancy there. I mean, looking at the mock draft,
125 to 132. I'm calling my shot right now.
he's projected 80th overall. So I don't know, sometime in the 3rd round, it's looking like.
If he goes in that, I don't really know if 80th would really change my mind. If he goes top 70 picks, I'm going to be very surprised, and
if he goes
I'd have to readjust
in general, I think that's a pretty big boost for him.
Well, I think that's what's currently expected. Yeah, so I don't know how much he's getting boosted.
Or early day 3. I really, for running backs, I don't really think there's a huge difference between early 4th and late 3rd and mid 3rd. I think it's roughly the same for those players.
Yeah. All things being equal, I'd rather have the day 2 than day 3, but
yeah, right. 2nd round, very early 3rd is to me the line.
All right, but that's I took him at 207 in our mock draft, and I feel okay about that. I mean, there's a lot of players around.
Listen, there's a lot of the reasons not to like him. He's just very inconsistent over his 3 years at Auburn. He had that incredible freshman year and everyone thought he was going to be, the next Saquon kind of guy. And he is a great athlete too. He was a track and field guy as well. But the thing I like about him is he just has a nose for the end zone. He's a guy that really just, when you give him the ball inside the 10, he's going to get in somehow. So I just like how he translates to the next level. He has the big build. He has the good, power and finishing of runs. He has a nose for the end zone. I just think he's a guy that's going to find a way onto a team. And he may not be, a true workhorse, but there's very few true workhorses left in the NFL. And I just think he's going to fit into a backfield very nicely as this big power back. And he's going to carve out a nice role for himself in the NFL. I know his pass catching leaves a lot to be desired. And he's, like I said, he's been very inconsistent over his 3 years at Auburn. So if you can, up this level of consistency and just really, he doesn't even have to play at the elite level we saw his freshman year. If he just plays, at 75, 80% of that, then he's going to be a quality running back in the NFL, in my opinion. The question is, to me, it seems like he's just not all there all the time. His head's just not there. And I don't know if that's going to change when he gets to the NFL or not. So that is why, to me, at least, the risk is in Tank Bigsby. And I like him a lot, and I would draft him top of the second round. I think I took him in our mock 2 weeks ago, I took him at 205. I would take him a little earlier. Honestly, I could take him up to about
205 is good value for him.
Yeah, I think I could take him up to about 203, 202. Right now, obviously, if he tests better than I'm expecting, I think he's a good athlete. But if he runs this 4.4, I think a lot of people are going to be kind of shocked here. He just reminds me a lot of successful running backs in the NFL. So I kind of like the pick, but it's just this inconsistencies that I saw. It scares me because when you have a guy that's not fully in the game here, especially at a college level, I just think it's a big red flag.
Well, here's the thing, and I don't know, this is something that Frank said in the past. I'm curious to see if you're going to agree with what I'm going to say here, Frank. He was nasty his freshman year. Like, he was really good his freshman year. And then we haven't seen like him like steadily improve since that freshman year, 2 years ago, I guess 3 years ago at this point. But I think you can give him a little bit of an excuse with how bad his offensive line was and how bad this Auburn team was. Like, I'm pretty sure this, I'm saying it off the top of my head, I don't have the stat in front of me, but I think he led the college football in like being hit behind the line of scrimmage. Like, it was just every time he got the ball, he was already having to avoid tacklers. So to that, I'm willing to give him a little bit of a pass. He does have good receiving work though, as I'm pulling up his stat. Like, he it's not like he didn't catch passes in college, so that's a bonus for him. His size, like, I know his name's Tank, but he's not like crazy big. He's decent. Like, he meets the thresholds to be like a every down kind of running back. I just think he could be good value if he gets good draft capital. Like I think you're still going to see him in the second round. But I don't think he's one that I'm running out to go draft, if that makes sense.
I don't know. Tank Bigsby, like I kind of alluded to earlier, really tough evaluation for me. Because I definitely see both sides of the story. I loved him coming into college, like you said, right? The freshman season looked great production, good size and everything. But he doesn't have like that real NFL level size. He's got good college size, right? He's a load in college, but to me, that real NFL size is like, okay, are you a Leonard Fournette? Are you like an AJ Dillon, right? Are you like 230 Najee Harris, right? You're 6'1", 6'2", 235, right? Tank Bigsby is a good 10, 15 short of that. And the reason I mention this is because this dude plays like he's a Derrick Henry, right? He's the type of guy you need to give him the ball a shit ton because he's going to have those 1 or 2 plays a game where he makes 2 guys miss. And when he gets going, he's a load to bring down. So he'll have his 2 big plays, but he doesn't have that shiftiness to his game that if you give him the ball in open space like a Dalvin Cook, even though Dalvin Cook isn't the craziest athlete, he's shifty enough to make a linebacker miss and get a big play. I really heavily question and very much doubt that if I get Tank Bigsby open on a screen pass, that one of these linemen from behind him don't have better get up than he does and just catch his ass from behind. Right? So, like,
yeah.
Who would you rather have? Who's the better prospect, him or Kenneth Walker?
Kenneth Walker. Right. The thing is, like, I love Tank Bigsby still, and I love the athletic profile, but I think realistically, I only want to touch him mid-late second.
That part though that you said about, I'm glad you mentioned that because I don't think he has like elite top speed or anything. Like he has.
He doesn't.
He breaks a lot of long runs, but he doesn't have like that thing that separates you from being like good to great, where it's like he can't get.
He's not quick. He is kind of fast. He's just not quick.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna see him probably run closer to 4.6 in the 40 than we are going to see like a 4.4.
That's the issue. But
yeah, Yeah, I'm just scared he's kind of like a freaking Bo Scarborough at the end of the day. You know, it's just like
you're throwing out some names here that I feel like are kind of mean.
Oh wow.
No, but dude, like Tank Bigsby, I do see a potentially really good back. And the thing with him, if he pans out, I feel like he's a James Conner, where he's just a mini bell cow. It's not the sexiest in the world, but when he's playing, the dude gets fed, right? And like you talk about a dude whose legs are just super freaking powerful. I have only like Derrick Henry have I seen a dude where I see defensive backs try to tackle a dude's legs and they just go bouncing off in a different direction. Like Derrick Henry, Javonte are like the only two dudes where it's just like knees of iron. You know, he's just out there like a knee stiff arm.
I also think Tank Bigsby. Again, against the name, like you call him mini bell cow like James Conner. I think James Conner might be like 30 pounds heavier than Tank Bigsby. Like it's like I don't know. It's different.
I don't know.
The ideal player comp that came into my mind would be, I mean, it might be not a great one. It was just off the top of my head. Healthy J.J.
Yeah, maybe.
I think J.J. had better speed, which is weird.
Yeah, but JJ was kind of similar in terms of the fact he wasn't really quick, but like he was still like straight line speed pretty fast, which I think is the case for Tank Bigsby. I still think straight line speed, he's not bad. I think it's just his quickness isn't great.
The thing is, I do think that there's a chance that he goes second round in the NFL draft.
I'd be surprised.
Simply because of the flashes he shows. Like his highlight reel is like top end running, like you could put his highlight reel and Bijan's highlight reel next to each other, and you're going to be like, okay, well, shit, 2023's got two Saquons, right? Like, but the lows of Tank Bigsby are so low. They're so low.
Mock drafts have him going in the late third.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I have him. Where's my prediction for him? Mid to late third, around pick 125. Like 120 to 125. Is that third or fourth?
That's fourth.
Okay, well I'll boost that.
No, I guess that's. Wait, am I being dumb? Yeah, no, that's fourth.
I said mid third to around 125. So like a good couple of like 50 picks, so that I won't miss and feel good about myself.
Well, mid third is like pick like what, 80?
Yeah, to pick one. Yeah, so like 50 picks.
Okay.
Now I won't be wrong, and I'll feel like I'm an amazing player.
Yeah. Fair enough. Can't be wrong if you cast a wide net.
Yeah, I think he's going to get drafted. I'm pretty good at this. All in all, I think once again, Tank Bigsby is another player that right now I'd probably just be not drafting him at his ADP. I think he's going a handful of picks too high for me. Especially like if you're doing these, because I like to join a couple leagues where I've done the startup draft before, with rookies before the NFL draft. Yeah. You just have to just be, to me, really in on one of these running backs. Like last year, I was willing to draft Brian Robinson in his ADP. But you have to remember, Brian Robinson was going like mid-second price tag, and that's where all these running backs go, right? They all go. Isaiah Spiller was being drafted as a first-round pick. Right? Like you have to be really in on these guys if you were going to pay their ADP pre-draft. It's a risky business out there.
James Cook was sneaking into the first.
That was kind of post NFL draft when he got Bill's second round draft capital.
That's true.
So yeah, it's a dicey business out there doing that. So that's why Achane, I'd love to pick up at that mid-second valuation in these startups, right? He's probably going somewhere around 13, 14 off the top of my head. Yeah, fuck yeah, I'll pick him up around there. Ton of upside. But at a lot of these other dudes, unless you're Charbonnet, Achane, Gibbs, and Bijan, I'm probably not going to be picking you up at your ADP, and I'd rather be picking up the receivers and tight ends that are in this class.
Yeah,
at their ADP.
I've for the receivers, and honestly, everything around like the late first to early second, I'll wait for the draft, but the more I study in and everything, I want to trade out.
I do really like these early seconds, and I know I say this. You say that every year around this time, where you're starting to look and you see doing mocks, and you're going like even just looking at our mock from 2 weeks ago, right? We had Josh Downs, Kendre Miller, Charbonnet, Hyatt, Bigsby, Butte, Zach Evans, Darnell Washington, like all these guys, like they sound really good right now, but half of them are gonna fall off just because of their draft capital.
Yeah.
So like, do I like the early second? Yes. I think it's a good value. It always is. Those first 3-4 picks in the second round are always good value. But after that, I would be careful trying to trade for seconds.
I think a big thing with people in that range is where we see some of these quarterbacks go.
Right. I mean, if we see four quarterbacks in the first round,
in the mock drafts, if both of them go first round in the top like 25 picks or something, some of those guys are like 108 fall a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we have 4 quarterbacks go in the first round of the NFL draft, and then let's say even 3 of them go in the first round of rookie drafts, even though I think all 4 should at that point.
Yeah.
Then it starts to push these position players, these skill players down the board, which increases the value of a second here.
Yeah. So I should say I'll wait till we see where the quarterbacks go, because I think that'll be interesting.
No, yeah. Right now I'm just doing some paper math. I mean, these early seconds, if the receivers hold up their end of the bargain, and we do have, and this running back class, I don't imagine this running back class is going to be dog shit. It's just a matter of like, okay, which guy fills in as the consensus RB3, 4, 5, 6, right? It's just the order that needs to be determined. But nonetheless, there's going to probably be at least 3 running backs, if not 4, with first round ADP this year.
Mm-hmm.
And with a 201 or a 202 or a 203 in a 12-man league, you're going to have your shot at probably one of these tight ends, 3 of which are being mocked in the first round of the NFL draft, might I add, with a 4th coming out of nowhere, this Oklahoma State guy. So it's like we have all these different experts with 4 now tight ends with first round grades, right? The receivers seem to be fine. Yeah, it's not crazy upside, but there's at least 4 or 5 that you can make an argument are going to be in the first round. So yeah, there's just an overflow now that there's potentially 4 quarterbacks. There's an overflow of players. So yeah, these early seconds they're pretty nice. They're not like ridiculously insane, but they're pretty damn nice. They're definitely closer to this 2021, 2020 early second than the 2022 early second.
Yeah.
Because like I'm thinking about it, dude, if one of these running backs falls to that 4th round, early 4th round, they're going to be pushed back to the late second, 3rd roundish area. Whereas last year, those players were going in the early second. Those running backs were being picked. Isaiah Spiller was still an early second. Brian Robinson, right? Like, I guess these are some 3rd round dudes, but a lot of these 4th round guys were still being picked up in the 2nd round last year. That might be a deal breaker this year for if you're a 2nd round pick or not. So definitely something to keep in mind. But I've got nothing else to talk about.
That's all I got.
All right. Well, if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. We're probably going to keep choosing a handful of prospects every week and going over them. Yep. We hope you liked it. I was about to say good luck in your fantasy matchups, but no. That doesn't exist.
Luna sent a tweet that was so mean. It was like Sky Moore was wide receiver 7 on the league. There was only 2 games.
Wide receiver 7 in the divisional round.
Yeah, if you're an Eagles or a Chiefs fan, you can go fuck yourself. I hate you. And yeah, I'll see you. Have a good one.